what's going on? It's Sunday, and we're talking about another movie.
This was a good one.
Yeah, remember when we did the original Bela Lugosi Universal Dracula, we mentioned on there that there was a Spanish language version, which was shot pretty much simultaneously, like on the same set, same costume, same script, everything like that. And we discovered that Tubi had the Spanish language version also.
Yeah, you can see it for free on there.
So we watched that one as well, because I was really, really curious to compare the two of them.
Spanish Dracula. Yeah. Spanish Dracula. Same sets, everything. It's a Universal picture, too.
Yeah.
And watched it in some ways, a better movie than the American version, or the English version. Now, it doesn't have Bela Lugosi in it, which, that's a strike against it. But the actor that they have playing Dracula in this, he has his own take on the character, and I liked him. I liked him as Dracula. And there's a lot of special effects in this one that were cut out of the other one. A lot of little story details were cut out. This is a good movie. You know, you want to see both of them. You want to see both of them. Yeah.
But I think that's really cool, and I think I mentioned this because I feel like the Spanish language, I think most people know about it now, or more than they used to. But see, the thing about it was that they thought that the Spanish language Dracula was lost for a really long time. So it was only super horror nerds, going back to the 60s and 70s, that remembered anything about it. And like I said, they thought that it had been lost. And then in New Jersey, in a warehouse or something, back in the 70s, they found a partial print of it. I think some of it had rotted away and stuff. But they actually showed it, I think, at the Museum of Modern Art. And interest kind of got, reignited after that. And then finally, later on in the 90s, I think in Cuba, they actually found a whole print of it that was all intact. And at that point, Universal decided they were going to release it. Because you remember, on VHS back in the 90s when they did that big, Universal Monsters collection?
Yeah.
And they decided to include it with that. And they were actually surprised, how many orders they got for it. How many people were curious and, wanted to see it once they figured out, all of the background behind it. So from that point forward, I believe, now if you buy, the Universal Monster, set or whatever, then it'll have this on there as well. But I just, like I said, it's cool because you don't really get... I know that Universal did this for a few years, back in the late 1920s and early 1930s. When sound films first started getting, real widespread, they didn't really have... the same kind of dubbing technology that they would have nowadays. Because nowadays they just make a movie and then they just dub different, tracks over it, which is much less, expensive, obviously. But before they could really do that, what they would normally do was what they did in this case, where it's you'd have the sets and then whatever language they thought, whatever country they wanted to sell this particular movie in, they would use all the same sets, the same script, the same costumes, everything like that. But then they would get those speaking actors and they would just shoot it at around the same time, you know what I mean, using all the stuff, and then they would, so they'd make multiple versions. But as far as I know, this is really the only one that's got super famous. And I think that because they didn't do very well, I think this was one of the last times that they did this before they just said, fuck it, we're going to dubbing because that's cheaper.
Right.
But so it's really weird. I got kind of fascinated by this because here's two movies working from the same script, but it's a different cast and different directors.
It's a different edit, a different cut. The shots are done differently.
It's fascinating.
The characters are interpreted in different ways. Because the censorship issues were different in the Spanish-speaking world, they didn't have to cut a bunch of special effects out. They allowed you to see stuff happen, I think, to a certain extent. There's more of the brides in there, a few seconds of them. The guy who does Renfield knocks it out of the park. He's a lunatic, and he's got a lot more lines. Yeah, he's
way over the top.
He's got a lot more lines. Dracula has a lot more lines. He does more stuff. The script is more coherent because it's not as edited. So, they tell you what happened to Lucy. They did. They told you that they
don't show it.
They don't show it,
but they do actually tell you. There's a scene where they say, we're gonna have to go do that, and then later on they're like, that sucked that we had to do that, pretty much. Whereas the English version just left you hanging.
Another thing is there's dynamic shots in this. they actually move through Castle Dracula and Carfax Abbey. You get to see the flying buttresses. You can see how 3D that set really was. I mean, it was an expensive set. And in the English version, it's very static the way it's shot. It might as well just be a 2D fucking stage, like something off a damn play. Or it may as well be like a matte painting, you know. But in this one, you see that, no, it's a location. It's good, real good. What's the actor's name who plays Dracula in this?
His name is Carlos Villarreal.
Villarreal. Okay, yeah, okay. Well, Carlos does a great.
Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that.
Carlos does a great job as Dracula. It's a different interpretation. He's using a lot of stuff that you'd use in silent film.
More exaggerated facial expressions.
Yeah, his facial expressions are more exaggerated.
Tammy asks, "Is this on Tubi also?" Yes, it is.
Yeah,
yes, it is.
It's he kind of comes off a little bit more like the Phantom of the Opera. If you see any scenes with the Phantom of the Opera,
I see what you're getting at.
And I think maybe he saw Phantom of the Opera, so I'm going to go in that direction. And what it ends up being is it almost ends up being kind of reminiscent of Gary Oldman's Dracula back when he's in what do you call it? Turco's Vista? Where was it? It was Wallachia, but I think he called it Turco Vista at the time that he was in there. But he's just kind of trying to be a friendly host and trying to act normal, but this dude ain't normal, you know. There's a lot of good shit in it that's cut out of the English version. It's just more of a complete story. And I like this Dracula. I like that. I like Carlos's interpretation of Dracula. It's a vampire.
Yeah, it's a lot different, like I said. And some people, I think that people that come at it from like, oh, maybe like a little bit of criticism or saying it's like, oh, it's a little bit like cheesier or it's a little kind of goofy. But I mean, I can see that, but it's just like a different take. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's coming off. He's doing what Lon Chaney's senior, who I believe that's who the Phantom of the Opera was. I think it was Lon Chaney's dad, right?
Now I can't remember.
I think it's a mixture of Phantom of the Opera and Nosferatu. I don't know if he saw Nosferatu. Was Nosferatu already saved and in circulation by the time this one was around?
Yeah, you know what?
Because some of the stuff he's doing is very kind of something like out of Nosferatu.
Because that's the thing, like Nosferatu came out in 1921 or 1922, but then there was all that, you know, folderol about like how it was supposed to be destroyed. I mean, I'm assuming that people saw it at the time, like in the 1920s, like before the lawsuits and everything.
Because he's holding his mouth in a way to where you can see his front teeth, and it looks like how Nosferatu had little rat teeth.
Yeah,
he's more rat-like than Bela is. Bela's kind of, and he hadn't seen Bela's performance evidently.
I'm not sure if he did, because I was watching a couple different, because there's a couple videos like on YouTube where they're like comparing the two. Most of them say just the director and the cinematographer, I think, watched the rushes from the Tod Browning English language version, because they would shoot during the day and then this crew would come in at night and they would watch like the dailies. Now, some of the things said that actor, the guy that played Dracula in the Spanish language version, Carlos, that he was the only actor that was allowed to watch the Bela Lugosi one. But then I've also seen some sources say that like none of the actors watched the other ones. So I'm not really sure what the truth is. Like, I don't know if they basically said, hey, do it like Bela Lugosi or with your own thing or what.
He is not copying Lugosi.
He's not, though. Yeah,
no, it's his own take on it, and I like it. To me, it feels more like I said, Phantom of the Opera and Nosferatu. I think maybe he had seen Nosferatu. Or he had read something about vampires being kind of bestial and kind of rat-like and kind of creepy, you know, because he's doing that. And it's more of a retro acting style, more like from the silent film era. But then the way the movie's shot's more futuristic. The camera's moving. And it fucking wobbles when it moves. They don't give a shit. They're walking across the damn floor.
Well, I mean, those cameras were much, much bigger. Yeah, they were heavy. Like, and a lot more unwieldy than they are nowadays.
But it's effective to have the camera move.
It is. Yeah, they didn't really, I mean, especially during, and a lot of people will point this out, like in the comparison, like in the English language version, like the introduction of Dracula, like when you first see him like come down the stairs or whatever, it's kind of like, it's a cool shot, but it's just really static. Like, you just have Bela Lugosi, like, walking down the stairs, and then here's Renfield I keep wanting to say Harker because that's what it is in the book, but it's Renfield, and he doesn't notice him at first, and then he turns around and he's like, "Ooh, what?" You know what I mean? So it's that. But in the Spanish language version, they actually do a bat flies into the castle and kind of goes up here, and then Dracula comes out, like implying that he just like turned into a bat.
Yeah.
And then like there's a dolly shot like up the stairs, like that. Yeah. And it's like, so it's a lot more, like I said, it's a lot more dynamic, like the movement, which I thought like was a lot more effective in that way.
Yeah, and then there's a deleted scene in here that is kind of implied only a little bit in the English version. When Renfield goes up the stairs to meet the Count walks towards him and goes through a giant spider web.
Yeah.
And greets him. They talk for a little bit, and then he turns around and walks right back through that giant spider web without breaking it.
And it doesn't.
And Renfield's like, "How the fuck did he do that?" And he has to go through it, but he breaks it. So it was that wasn't in the.
They did it in the English language version, but it was so subtle that if you weren't really looking for it, you probably wouldn't even notice.
Yeah, it makes a bigger deal of it in this.
It's a bigger deal. Like, it's much more obvious that the vampire, like, walks through. So I kind of feel like in the Spanish language version, they make it very clear, like, from the get-go that he's supernatural.
Yeah.
Whereas in the English language one, he's not as supernatural.
And they turned that special effect into a miniature scene, and it's very effective.
Yeah.
It's a very effective, suspense-filled scene. Renfield's like, how the fuck did he walk through that without breaking it?
Yeah, they made a bigger deal about it. And like I said, I think the only reason that I noticed it in the English language version was because somebody had told me that the Spanish language version like made a bigger deal out of that. Like, because I don't think I would have noticed it otherwise.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because in the English, it is in there, but because like I said, it's the same script, but a lot of it was, I think we mentioned this like when we were talking about the Bela Lugosi Dracula, but the Spanish language version is about half an hour longer.
There's a lot more stuff in there. It's a more complete story. It's a must see. You know what I mean? If you've seen Bela Lugosi's Dracula, you got to see this one too. It's a great supplement.
Yeah, because I just find it so interesting that it's like, and one thing too that I think, and okay, so one of the major things, like I said, and we talked about this when we were talking about the Bela Lugosi one, is that they left Lucy hanging. Like I said, basically they did go into the whole thing about Lucy like attacking the kids or whatever, but then I don't think in the English language version they don't mention her again. I think like you kind of see her wandering around in the thing, but they don't say, "Oh, hey, we got to kill her," or they don't mention killing her. They just kind of like forget about it. Whereas in the Spanish language version, they don't show them killing her, like staking her, but they do have a scene where Van Helsing and I think Harker are talking, and they're like, "Yeah, we got to go do that." And then like much later on in the movie, they come out of like the cemetery or whatever, and they're just like, "Man, that's not what they say." They don't say, "Man, that sucked," but I'm just saying they're all like downbeat. It's like, well, we released her soul or whatever. So they did actually like resolve that. There's another scene too, and it's almost identical. Like in the English language version, there's a scene where Renfield, like crazy Renfield, is in the thing, like in I guess it's Dr. Seward's house, right? Is in Dr. Seward's house, and the maid passes out. And Renfield, like, crawls over to her, and it looks like he's gonna bite her or kill her or something like that. In the English language version, they cut away, and so you're like, well, what happened there? Like, did he kill her? What the fuck? But then, like, a scene or two later, like, the maid is fine, so you're not really sure, well, what was that all about? In the Spanish language version, they let that scene play out, and it's kind of like, it was almost like a gag. Like, what they did was she passed out, and then Renfield's, like, crawling toward her all menacingly, like something's gonna happen, and then it's almost like a joke, like there's, like, a fly, and he's like,
oh. Comes off her, and he tries to catch it.
And he tries to catch it.
Yeah.
So it's like, the fact that they didn't put that in the English language version, I wonder if people were confused, like, wait, I thought he killed the maid. Why is she still walking around and she's fine in the next scene? But they explained it in the Spanish language version. He didn't kill her. It was just like a gag.
The Spanish cast is top-notch. The Renfield that they got, he's great. He's good. He's got a different interpretation of the character.
Yeah, he is a maniac.
But he's got a lot more lines, I think. Than the other one.
Yeah.
He says a lot of really cool shit that kind of explains certain things that the English Renfield said. Like, the English Renfield said that he saw approaching him in the darkness what looked like flames. And as it got closer, he saw Dracula riding on top of the flames but the flames were millions of tiny little red eyes of rats. And then Dracula's eyes were just like the rats, but bigger.
Yeah.
The Spanish version, he gives more detail. You find out why he has so much grip over Renfield. Dracula promises him all the blood of all those rats to sustain him for fucking centuries. So that's why
he's super jacked about
that. Yes, he was fucking jacked. So that's what Renfield was doing all this shit for the blood of rats. All right. So that was quite a deal that he had worked out with Dracula. So and he did some other stuff about saving his soul. He said a bunch of stuff about Lucy and Mina and how they had to be saved. And then he called them all a bunch of liars, and he would never fucking betray Dracula. And he didn't know Dracula. He's backing up. He's talking himself in circles. It's good. Another cast member that stood out was the Spanish Van Helsing. He's good. He's real good.
Yeah.
He's just kind of a Spanish heavy, just kind of a gravitas type older guy. He's not skinny like the English one. I like the English version too. They're both good. It's just a different take on that character. The Spanish the Spanish Van Helsing, actually, I think he does a little bit more too, doesn't he?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like the scenes are much longer.
They're longer.
And some people are kind of like, I can see how maybe people think like the English language version one is paced better because it's much shorter.
Yeah.
Because some of the scenes are like very, very long and very talky, like in the Spanish version, because like they said they didn't cut them shorter. But in a lot of ways, I don't know. I kind of preferred that maybe.
Yeah.
Because I think maybe the English language one, maybe they took out like a little bit too much.
I think they did. Because some of the stuff that they're talking about is important to the story, and it makes sense of why the scene is going that way when you see the Spanish version, because it's a longer edit and the story's more coherent. The Spanish Van Helsing kind of is more brave. He comes off as being more brave, more defiant to Dracula.
Also, he has great what the fuck face.
Yeah, he's got a lot of what the fuck face. Yeah.
Like I really like his facial expression.
Now I do kind of prefer the English "come here" fucking scene.
Yeah, that is like
Bela really had
Bela's
that
which
right.
I mean he kind of owns that role.
Yeah.
He's much creepier.
Yeah, he's a lot creepier.
He's a lot scarier.
Yeah,
I think
the Bela is fucking very much about gravitas and that accent. You know what I mean? In English, it sounds really cool, and he's playing that character pretty straight. You know, this guy. Dracula's more kind of like the Spanish Dracula's a little bit closer to Nosferatu. He's creepy. Sometimes it comes off as clowny.
A little manic. Like his eyes are real big.
Yeah, he's high strung.
Yeah.
He's high strung. But Nosferatu kind of came off looking that way in some of the silent scenes with his eyes all bugged out. He does have sounds like he does have a Romanian accent in Spanish. So I give him props to that. Mina and Lucy were different in the Latin. They're Latin girls, so they have black hair. They looks real goth. They're more shapely than the American actresses, and the outfits are a lot more suggestive.
Way more cleavage.
More cleavage,
way
tighter, more which goes to show that in Latin culture they liked thick. You know what I mean? But even back then, the hourglass figure, low cut, black hair, and I thought it would look good. And the other than that, the characters were about the same. didn't notice any big difference between them. Mina had more. They don't call her Mina. They call
Ava.
her Ava. Okay.
Ava.
Now I think
Eva or Ava.
I think because Mina probably doesn't translate well in Spanish. In Portuguese, Mina sounds like minha, which means mine. And in Brazil, sometimes they could say minha so quickly, it sounds like they said Mina.
Yeah.
And Mina might be mine in Spanish. I'm not sure. They're real close.
Yeah, so maybe it was like an actual word.
So they had to change her name because you're running around calling her mine. Mine. Doesn't make any, that would really fuck up Spanish dialogue. What's that?
That wouldn't make any sense.
Wouldn't make any sense.
Thank you, Camp Guy. Camp Guy gave us a super chat.
Thank you.
That's the T-shirt I gotta have. Not really sure which one, what one, but what? A what the fuck face?
Oh, okay. I don't know.
Oh,
okay.
What that one. Maybe it's that one, the
about.
OCP one.
I don't know.
Yeah, I designed that one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say I like the Spanish language Mina/Eva better than the English language version.
She has a little bit more lines.
She has more lines,
Yeah.
and she's more... Helen Chandler plays Mina in the English language version, and she's great. She's beautiful, but she's very icy, and she's kind of... Both her and Harker in the English language version are kind of more staid. You know what I mean? They're just kind of like, they're very like low key, kind of like, upper class English. You know what I mean? They're very like restrained and subdued. Whereas I kind of feel like the Spanish language versions of Mina and Harker, who they actually, like I said, call Juan and Eva or Ava, they're a lot more... They seem a lot more like organic, a lot more animated, and I think that works a little bit better. And I'm going to say too that the scene where where they're out on the patio or whatever, after Mina has already been bitten by the Count and she's like super into it, like talking about how much she loves the nighttime and everything, that scene, they actually show her biting, like trying to bite Harker, which they don't show in the English language version. In the English language version, Mina just like looks at him like all creepy and kind of like comes in like that, but then they cut away.
Yeah.
Whereas in the Spanish language version, she's like hugging on him and like laughing maniacally, and then like she actually like bites him on the neck.
I forgot.
And then like, Van Helsing and everybody are like horrified, like, oh my God. Oh, and also like her dress is like way down here, and like you can see all the boob and everything like that too. So.
Yeah. No, they're giving down blouses and stuff.
Oh, big time.
Which they wouldn't have done that in 31 in an English film. But, Latinos were ahead,
Yeah.
They knew how to get fucking asses into seats. And,
all their nightgowns were a lot more revealing. I mean, not a lot more. I mean, they're not walking around like half naked or anything like that. It is still the 1930s.
Yeah.
But they were a lot more.
They were sexy.
Compared to the ones in the English language version, they were a lot more revealing, a lot like lower cut.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have got away with that in the English language version back in those days.
Shit.
They were.
Trying to think of what else was.
Somebody mentioned the breaking the mirror scene, like where Van Helsing like first sees.
Yeah. Pow.
Yeah. So like that was
a good scene.
In a way, I kind of prefer the English language version because I kind of think it was more. It was more restrained, but I think that worked better. Like, because Bela Lugosi just kind of like smacks it's a cigar box or music box or whatever it is. And he like just slaps it out of his hand like that. Like, oh, sorry, I don't like mirrors. Whereas in the Spanish language version,
he hits it with his cane.
He's like, wham! Like it's a lot more like over the top.
I liked both.
Yeah.
I think both scenes fit the interpretation of the characters that the actors had. In other words, Bela's response was correct. Carlos's response was correct because they fit the characters.
Yeah.
There were differences in the characters. Carlos is not as restrained. He's more.
It's a much broader performance.
It's more open. He's more manic, like you said. A lot more hyper. All right. But eerie. Well, not eerie would be because eerie kind of didn't. He's creep. He's a creep. He's not.
Yeah, he comes across as like less suave.
Yeah, he's not that suave.
And more like kind of, I don't know if scuzzy or sleazy or something.
Yeah.
Something. I'm not sure they're like the right word.
That fits with a Romanian description of a Nosferatu. They weren't fucking sexy motherfuckers. They were corpses that came out of the fucking ground and they wearing their funeral robes and shit. And fucking, they were nasty. They were rats, basically. They're described as rats.
Oh, another thing that's different too is the way they come out the coffin.
Yeah, they actually
because they actually show in the English language version, they show like the coffin. They open it from the back, like you can't see nobody getting out, but it's just kind of like opens like that, and then the camera like dollies away like to a stained glass window or some shit, and then it dollies back, and then Bela Lugosi's going woo, like he just got out of there.
Yeah.
Whereas in the Spanish language version, the coffin opens and a whole bunch of like mist comes out.
Yeah, it's effective.
And then
there's a light and a mist.
Yeah, so it's like it looks like I said, a lot more supernatural.
It's kind of like the teleportation thing, or something when Genie comes out of the bottle, kind of like that. And it looks good. It looks good. They did a couple little gags like that.
Yeah, he came out like a couple. I don't. I mean, neither one. I mean, I'm sure they just had the actors, both actors, just kneeling down behind the coffin because, like I said, climbing out of a coffin is not. You don't look real cool doing that. So
there's two disappointing things about the Spanish edit, and they're also in the English one. There's no Lucy death scene.
Yeah, not in either one.
They're not in either one.
I guess they couldn't show that because that would have been like way too upsetting for the 1930s.
They should have showed him killing Lucy.
Yeah,
which cut her head off. Evidently, I think that's what it was in the book, wasn't it?
They staked her and cut her head off, and I think they put wolfsbane in her mouth too, if I'm remembering correctly. It's been a long time since.
So they should have had a scene where they go down the crypt and do that. Yeah, and then also the final confrontation with Dracula. It's too easy. They open the damn coffin and he's laying in there. He doesn't even wake up. They're sitting there talking about him. And they stake him. Nah. He should have been. Dracula should have been fighting back as soon as the coffin was open, and they don't actually show the staking. I think they used a little bit of a. Didn't the camera angle away?
Well, the Spanish language version shows more.
A lot more.
The English the English language version, the Bela Lugosi version, was really anticlimactic.
Yeah.
Basically they shot it from it's almost a long shot.
Yeah. And
you can't even really see. I don't even think you can see. It's been a few days since we watched it, but you just kind of see Van Helsing from the back, and he just kind of leans over like that, and then they cut away to Mina, and Mina's sitting there going, you know what I mean? She's psychically feeling the staking, but they don't show anything. And honestly, for a long time, I think when they first did the movie, there are some sound effects of Bela Lugosi going you know what I mean? They're staking him. But I think for a long time they took that out because they thought it would be too upsetting. It has been restored, the version that's on Tubi, and the version you see now, they put that sound effect back. Now in the Spanish version, it's a much closer shot, and you can see Dracula in the coffin like that, and they actually show Van Helsing in a fairly close shot with a big stake like that. And he puts it on Dracula's chest and raises the thing he's going to hit it, and then they cut away. So it's a lot more. I mean, they still don't show it, obviously, because it was 1931, and they can't show that kind of shit.
It's better than the English version,
but
it's still not enough.
It's not enough. But like I said, they couldn't get away with anything like that. That's what I mean. It's it would have been cool if they'd put the whole thing about Lucy in there, because that was in the book, them doing all that fucked up shit to her body. But in 1931, there was no way they could have showed
There should have been some kind of a fight scene. Some way of them forcing Dracula into the casket. Either he tries to come back out or they fight frozen man. There had to have been something more gags, more people with crosses, forcing him in or something. It's just too simple in both of them. It's too easy.
Yeah, that's. I think in the book, I'm trying to think. In the book, I think there was a chase, and then was it? God, it's been such a long time since I read the book. I thought it was Quincy Morris that staked him, or maybe it was a couple of them staking him, but there was kind of a chase, and the sun was coming up and all this other kind of shit. I don't think that Dracula popped out his coffin, if I remember correctly, but I don't know, maybe he did fight back. But yeah, any kind of one that just has him finding, I mean, because the whole thing was, they just have to find where he's hiding his coffin at, which to me seems like it wouldn't be all that difficult.
Well, he just had it laying out in the open.
That's what I mean. It would be a lot different if he really had it hidden someplace, and then the whole thing would be this mystery, trying to figure out where it was.
Should have been hidden in a wall behind some kind of secret.
Yeah,
door
see, I mean,
something.
if I was Dracula, I would have all kind of fucking shit to hide that.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to find me.
You can't just leave it out in the middle of the floor. Because that seemed like where it was. Well, obviously,
it wasn't even locked.
There it is. That's what
it wasn't even locked.
You could
think you'd lock it from the inside.
Any motherfucker could just wander down in there and be like, "Oh hey," and it's they know you can't get up because the sun's up, and you just have to lay there and be like, "Well, I'm getting staked. That sucks."
I would have moved some of those blocks out of the castle and made a damn tunnel and got in there and had equipment to pull the blocks in behind me. You know what I mean? So there'd be no way.
And also put a lock on the coffin too, just for more safety
on
measures.
The inside.
Sure.
Yeah. Put some alarms out there, so he comes in and wakes you up.
Whoop.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's nowadays you could have all kind of shit. You could have your cell phone. You could have a Ring doorbell. You could have all kind of shit on there. Yeah. So it's he could just have a tablet in the coffin and be like, "Hey, some motherfuckers outside my fucking," you know what I mean?
Do you have anything else on it?
Let me see. Hold on. Slash Fred said there's a foreign company called Bollywood who has done their own versions of many famous movies, including I mean, well, I kind of feel like India, they do. Maybe not as many as Turkey. I feel like Turkey is kind of known for doing just really, really cheap shitty versions of pretty much any movie that did any bit of business, but India does that too.
Yeah. Just look up Turkish Spider-Man, Turkish Batman, Turkish Star Wars. They're on YouTube. They're fucking horrible. Funny though.
They're funny because
it's supposed to be funny.
It's funny because of the way that different things are translated through different cultures. Yeah. Which one is it? Is it Turkish Spider-Man or Turkish Batman that has him going to like a strip club and like killing people and shit?
Turkish Spider-Man.
I think that's Turkish.
Turkish Spider-Man was a bad guy actually. Yeah. They couldn't conceive of Spider-Man being a good guy.
Not looking like that.
No. Well, Batman's kind of the same way. Some I've seen Japan kind of ripped off Batman. And they would make villains look like Batman. Like the villains from fucking, what was it? G-Force. The villain from G-Force was Batman. It looked like Batman. Drawn just like him. But, so anything that looks like that has to be a bad guy, you would think.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting cultural kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like if you don't want to watch the whole movies, Brandon Tenold, who is a Canadian YouTuber, and he's fucking hilarious, he does a lot of those. He talks a lot about those Turkish knockoff movies, and he does like 20-30 minute like breakdowns of them, and some of them are just like unbelievable. One of these days, says Slasher Fred, you should review the film The Fearless Vampire Killers. I would like to do that one. That's Roman Polanski, right? Isn't that Roman Polanski? Fearless Vampire Killers? Is he in that? Why am I thinking that? I don't know. Danny Rowling said, instead of shake and bake, it's steak and bake. Stake him and watch him catch fire. That's the thing. I do kind of feel like, and that's, honestly, I think the kind of anticlimactic ending of both. And like I said, in that regard, the Spanish version is better. It's still not great, but at least you see what's happening. I think the English language version, like I said, it's just, oh, there's Van Helsing's back way the fuck over there. And then we're cutting away, and you kind of know what happened because it's implied, but they don't show it, you know what I mean? So, but like I said, that was the time. It was the 1930s. You can't show a stake going into a chest. You can't show somebody getting their head cut off. You can't show anything like that. I mean, there's so much shit you can't show. Well, shit, like in the English language version, they couldn't even show him biting anyone. Actually, the Spanish language version, they don't show him biting anyone either. Like a few times, but he does get kind of closer. Like he'll lean over and then like he'll do his cape. But they did show Mina or Eva biting John/Juan. They did show her doing that, like, or at least like going for his neck and be like, ah, like that. So that was more like way more than the English language version showed. So there was that. I mean, they're both totally worth watching and it's really cool to like watch them really close together so you can like compare, because it's like I said, it was the same exact script. They worked up the same exact script. In some ways, I think the Spanish filmmakers, it was directed by George Melford, by the way, who didn't speak any Spanish. He had to have he actually started as an actor. He was in some movies with Valentino and shit. But he was in a fuck ton of movies and directed a fuck ton of movies. But he had to have a translator because he didn't speak any Spanish. But he did a bunch of these. So, I mean, the funny thing was that I guess in a way they kind of had an advantage because they would come in at night and then they would watch the dailies from Tod Browning's version, and then they'd be like, how can we do that but better? You know what I mean? It's like, oh, well, they're just keeping the camera in this one place. We're going to do like some crazy shit with it. It's not crazy, but I mean, it was a lot more dynamic, like I said, than the English language version because they already had a template to go off of, and they said, how can we improve that? So in some scenes, they absolutely did. Now, I'm going to say that Bela Lugosi, you can't beat that role. Like I said, he owns that shit. But most of the other things about, and I like the Van Helsing in the English language version. I like some things better about the English language version. But on most other metrics, I think in a lot of ways, the Spanish language version is better.
So do I. I think
other than Bela Lugosi. If Bela Lugosi had been in the Spanish language version,
man, knock it out of the park.
That would have been like the best Dracula movie ever.
Yeah. Even though I gotta give respect to Carlos. Carlos did a good vampire. It's not Bela Lugosi. I mean, that guy's iconic. Yeah. He did that shit live for years before he ever did it in a movie. So he kind of wrote what you know of as Dracula. That was kind of his role. Kind of like how Leonard Nimoy basically wrote Spock.
Yeah.
All the shit that you remember about Spock, Nimoy came up with that.
That was like his idea.
That was his baby. You know. So They're both great movies for different reasons. The Spanish version, I'm going to give the Spanish version for being, it's a better story. There's more of it there. It's a more innovative movie. They're moving the camera around. It's a lot more fun to watch. The acting style is retro for 1931, which that makes sense to me. You know what I mean? It's just got a slightly different tone. The guy playing Dracula is not doing a Lugosi style vampire. He's doing his own interpretation of it, and it's closer to kind of like Nosferatu, if you ask me. If you can imagine Nosferatu speaking, that's kind of what you're dealing with. I like it though.
Yeah,
I like it.
They're both really fun to watch. Like I said, watch them both like as a double feature. It's like really interesting.
Yeah.
Slasher Fred said there was once cereals that had versions of Dracula and Frankenstein called Chocula and Frankenberry. Yeah, everybody knows about that. Actually, I think they still make it. I saw them. Yeah. I saw them at Sam's or Costco or something like that, like around Halloween. Yeah, Boo Berry. I don't think that one. And they had Fruit Brute too.
Yeah, I don't remember that one.
You remember Fruit Brute? You don't remember Fruit Brute? Yeah. I don't think that one sold all that well. But I think they still do them in. I don't know if they sell them all year, but I think they do like limited editions around Halloween. I don't really like. I like the idea of it. But the cereals themselves, I don't think are
I don't remember
good.
them tasting good even when I was a kid.
No, I didn't like them either.
Yeah.
I just like the boxes.
Right.
Like I was like, man, why isn't the cereal good? It made me so mad because I was like, I would totally buy this because the boxes are awesome. But...
I remember Boo Berry was like fucking sweet as fuck.
Yeah.
Super sweet. And I think the strawberry one that had Frankenstein on it, what was that called?
Frankenberry.
Frankenberry, yeah. I remember that kind of like tearing up my tongue. Something about the
in
dye
some ways was it the dye or was it kind of like Captain Crunch where it has like where it's that real textured
I think it might have been a little bit of both.
It gives you like little micro cuts on your tongue.
I think it was the dye.
Yeah, it might have been.
There's something about that red dye that
I wonder was that
gave you a funny taste.
I wonder was that the red dye that got banned later on?
Might be,
like that had been on the M&Ms or whatever.
The only one that I remember when I was a kid that I haven't seen in a long time that I thought was great was the damn Cookie Crisp cereal. Remember that?
I think they still make that.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in a long time.
That shit was delicious.
Yeah.
I liked that too.
Yeah.
One cereal that I think they still make it. I don't know. We don't buy a lot of cereal, so I wouldn't, and I don't really go in the cereal aisle, so I don't know. But I used to really like Cookie Crisp too. Yeah. One cereal, but I don't know if they still make it. One cereal that I'm almost positive they don't make anymore, but I used to love as a kid was Waffle-O's.
Oh, I remember those, yeah.
God, those were delicious.
Man, we're talking about food on
They were
Damn
maple. They were maple.
I remember
they
those.
were so good.
I remember them, yeah.
American Military 100. Have you guys ever reviewed the Omen trilogy? We did, didn't we? Didn't we do all the Omen movies?
We'll have to check. We've seen them all. I don't know if we reviewed them.
I remember we watched them like a year and a half ago, and I was like, I thought we had done like all three of them like over 3 days.
It's one of the best trilogies out there.
They're all good.
They're all good.
And I kind of feel like people don't talk about 2 and 3, but they're both right. And actually, like a young...
I love 3.
Young Sam Neill is in the third one. He plays a grown-up Damian.
I love 3. The final conflict. I thought it was really cool. The way it ended and everything.
Yeah, they're all good. Yeah. They're all good. I mean, the first one is like my favorite because it's iconic, but you know, and that kid is fucking great.
3 was cool too, though.
But they were all good. They're all good. Rebecca says Count Cola was a thing here when I was a kid in Australia. Cola soda soft drink with Count Dracula on the can.
I don't remember that.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, I don't think we had that here, unfortunately. Yeah. Danny Rolling, this is a blast from the past. There used to be these black vampire popsicles in the early 90s that would turn your tongue black with blood filling. I remember those.
I don't remember those.
I remember that. Vampire Secret popsicles. Yep, I remember those. I think we had those a couple times.
I remember the black ice cream used to get at Baskin Robbins for Halloween. It was black licorice. They would sell black licorice ice cream and pumpkin ice cream.
Pumpkin ice cream.
Yeah. Good.
Maybe we should with all that pumpkin that we have, maybe we should make some ice cream with it.
Man, making ice cream is so expensive nowadays. Be cheaper to order that flavor.
Probably it would.
Because you need all the eggs and all the cream and all. I could go down to Sam's probably and get all that cream. And it's a lot of cream.
Yeah.
A lot of cream.
We used to have an ice cream maker.
I don't have the ice cream maker.
Yeah.
I mean, you can rig one up. I mean, you can make it in a bag with a bunch of ice and fucking rocks.
Yeah.
It's not hard.
Yeah, you don't need like the ice cream maker.
No, I could probably do it with a immersion blender or egg beater.
Yeah, you probably could. You probably could.
You get kind of thick. You know what? That machine's probably not expensive. You want me to get a machine, don't you? You know what else she wants me to make? She wants me to make a still.
When did I say that?
I just made you say that because I want to still. I want to make a still.
Oh, that's how we're gonna play. Because I was like, I
Oh.
literally cannot remember ever saying that to you.
I made that up.
In the 12 or 13 years I've known you. I don't think I've
that up.
ever said that.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a still.
Unless I was so drunk that I don't remember. We should make a still.
Make a still. Make moonshine or vodka.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
Rebecca also says, Interview with the Vampire is still my favorite vampire film. Original Nosferatu is my second. Also good films. Yeah. Honestly, I don't know if I could pick. Probably The Hunger. The Lost Boys. I don't know. I like a lot of I don't know. I like a lot of them. So it's kind of hard to pick just one.
Spanish Dracula, man, check it out. It's free.
It's good. Yeah,
Tubi.
it's on
Yeah,
Tubi.
it's good.
Yeah, like I said, but both versions are on there. The Bela
watch them
Lugosi
both.
version and the thing.
It's a bonus movie.
Slasher Fred said, one of the classic movies I have seen, I've been wanting to do this, is Mad Monster Party, stop motion animation. I've been wanting to do, I might do it over on my Scare Salon thing, because I've been wanting to rewatch. I haven't seen it in years and years, and I used to fucking love that. And I haven't seen it for probably 20, 30 years, and I really, really want to rewatch it. So thank you for reminding me, because I might do that next month. American Military 100 said, The Omen was the only classic for whose sequels lived up to the original. They were all great. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. What's tomorrow's A Haunting episode going to be? Well, you asked us to do Ghost Hunter.
We can do that.
And that was one, I think you requested it before because I wrote it down. So if nobody has any objections, we'll do Ghost Hunter. And we can talk about that one tomorrow, so that'll be fun. And then on Tuesday's matinee show, we're doing the sequel to Universal's Dracula, which is Dracula's Daughter. Now, I will say that last night we watched Son of Dracula, and we might talk about that one too, but I didn't love it. That one was Lon Chaney, Yeah. And I don't know.
You talking about the one last night?
Son of Dracula, yeah.
Yeah, Son of Dracula wasn't any good.
I didn't really like it.
No, Lon Chaney was not cast correctly in that. That's not who you wanted in there to be Bela Lugosi's son.
But Dracula's Daughter, I kind of dug.
That was a good one, yeah.
It's kind of more, you said this is almost like a chick flick.
It is a chick flick.
Kind of.
I like a chick flick, but it's still good. I like it.
I liked it too. I thought it was really cool. I had seen it before, but I hadn't seen it for a really long time.
Dracula's daughter is she's kind of a repentant vampire. She doesn't want to be a vampire anymore. So she basically kind of hooks up with a psychiatrist or a psychologist. She thinks that he can make her back into a mortal. It doesn't really work out, though. Doesn't work out.
Spoiler alert.
Doesn't work out. And she's a good-looking chick. Looks like a fucking Greek statue of Hera or something. Low-cut outfit. And then there's hotties in the movie, And it's in a modern setting. They're probably in New York somewhere, huh? Did they ever say where they are?
Oh, I don't know. Now I have to look it up. I can't remember.
Yeah, it's not out in any spooky castles or anything like that.
Yeah, it's set in a modern city.
Yeah.
Well, modern for 1936 or whenever it came out.
There's kind of hints of lesbianism in it.
Yes, they're doing some Carmilla action.
Yeah, they did a little bit of Carmilla action. For the 30s. That was ahead of his time. Well, I think you were just supposed to read in between the lines that something was up. Mm-hmm. But, no, it was a pretty good flick. I wouldn't worry about Dracula's son. Fuck that.
Son of Dracula.
Son of Dracula. Fuck that. But Dracula's Daughter is good. We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about that Tuesday because tomorrow we got to do Haunting. But so tomorrow, like I said, we're probably going to do Ghost Hunter unless some other thing intervenes, which it probably won't. But I'll announce it again tomorrow, so you guys, if you want to watch it, prior to us talking about it, so that'll be fun. So thanks everybody for dropping by and hanging out with us, talking about Spanish language Dracula and all that kind of stuff. And have a good rest of your evening. And we'll see you guys again for Haunting Mondays tomorrow. Good